Hey team, so today's chat is sponsored by the letter E for effortlessness, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Obviously, this chat is going to revolve around the flow state, and an easy way for you to know what the landmarks are from being or for being in the flow state is by using the acronym known as STIR. So it's STER. The R is a little bit of a misnomer because they do a little bit of a bait and switch, but nevertheless, the S stands for selflessness, the T stands for timelessness, the E, which is what we're going to talk about today, stands for effortlessness, and the R is information richness. So you see how they kind of use the R instead of the I. Cheeky bastards, as it were. And let's talk about effortlessness in the flow state and how it is more synonymous with maximum embodiment. Sometimes when you hear a word like effortlessness, it's very easy to think that that it's the person's not trying. It's easy for them, like they're just making it look so easy. So how can they even be trying? Whereas it's opposite is true, obviously, but also maximum effort can actually hold you back from getting into this state of effortlessness, which can be described as being in the flow state or one of the landmarks, being in an optimal state, or just simply the mode of being where you perform and feel your best. So, I'll give a personal example of effortlessness. The times back in the day when I was a dancer and I was doing martial arts, the times I either performed my best or had my best sparring match were the times when I was able to take my actions, my decision-making skills, and merge them into the present moment. So much so that everything I did, there could be no mistakes. I could do no wrong. Everything felt like on automatic pilot, like it was just coming out of me in this natural, perfect way. And while it was paradoxical because on the outside you might see the person like going super fast, have all this balance and exuding all this power, at the same time they're making it look easy. And internally that's what is you're experiencing as well. It becomes kind of automatic in the body where you're just going through it and you're there in it, but you're also observing it, and it's a very strange feeling. And I'm sure if there's something that you do that requires physical skill, like something like tennis or dancing or even Olympic lifting or kettlebell lifting, you will have experienced a state like this where you were doing your best and your metabolic rate was probably out of the charts or astronomical, but it didn't look that way and it probably didn't feel that way. And let's talk a little bit about maximum effort. The times that I performed my worst, whether that be with dancing or martial arts, was when I was too fixated, and that's a key word, stuck, stagnant, locked into the mechanical effort. I thought by putting more into the actual mechanical effort, the execution, that I would be able to do something, but it never worked. It, in fact, made me more stiff, more slow. I was more in my head, and you probably have experienced this as well, where you think, and it's very seductive to think that if you do more, if you just can work harder and sweat more and move like faster, like it's going to do something. But in the end, it doesn't do anything. In fact, it kind of holds you back. And there's a reason for that, because mechanical effort, while on the surface it appears very active, in actuality it is not. It is not as active because there's a part of you that is not engaged, that is deactivated, that is not lit up, and that is your awareness. And a way to think about your awareness, you can think of it this way. You can think of it as a way to pick up on patterns in your environment, and you can only do this unconsciously. So if you consciously try to do it, if you mechanically try to do it, if you try to intellectualize it, it is not going to work. It will not function the way it's supposed to function. It won't allow you to achieve this effortlessness state, this effortlessness. And I'll give you a perfect example. Today, if you were to come to Miami or New York, or if you were to go to any busy city street and you were to walk down the street, I almost guarantee you wouldn't bump into anybody. If you got on a crowded elevator, you would know exactly how to stand, right? You would stand in a way that is comfortable for you and other people. If you go to a party, you don't know anybody, you know the appropriate distance to stand from them. You know, as you get to know them, you'll stand a little bit closer, and then maybe if your friend shows up to the party, all of a sudden it's a different experience. And you do this implicitly, meaning that it is something that no one taught you, you don't have to think about, you just pick up on these patterns in the environment, and automatically your behavior starts to mold and form to it. Whereas if you were to do the opposite, if you were to go to a busy city street and think about everything you're doing, like step here, I'm going to shift here, then I'm going to transfer my weight, then I'm going to move my shoulder, you would bump into people. If you got on an elevator and you were awkwardly trying to figure out where to stand and you were thinking about it too much, then all of a sudden you look strange, and people are like, oh, this individual does not know how to get on a crowded elevator. By the way, the elevators here in Miami are very crowded. And then with a party, if you've probably have experienced this, where if someone doesn't know how to stand, like if they stand too close to you or they're a close talker, you're going to feel very uncomfortable, and you're probably not going to interact with that person as the party continues. So that is an example of implicit learning versus explicit. And the thing with implicit learning, it allows you to pick up on all these cues that if you are blocked off from those patterns, that you're not going to be able to achieve this state, because you won't be able to fully merge your skills and your awareness and then let that enhance your decision-making skills. Because every time you have an insight, like an aha moment, then you also jack up your implicit learning. Your implicit learning looks at different patterns and says, oh, okay, we're going to keep on exploring. And then you find something new, and you have another insight. You have another moment of implicit learning where you start to figure things out. And when you are too fixated on mechanical effort, on your physicality, on the technique, so to speak, that's when it gets hampered, when it's time to go full out. Having said that, there's obviously... effort is fantastic for getting you started, for maybe really drilling down something. If you got to drill down a specific pattern, movement, that's great for that. But when it comes time to letting it kind of just go, it can actually get in the way. And you've probably heard of this famous analogy where a sword student picks up the sword, and the teacher is teaching, they're swinging the sword, and it's horrible. It's choppy, they're holding it wrong, their stance is wrong, they're not using their hips. And then slowly but surely the teacher teaches them, and they get better and they get better and they get better and they get better, and pretty soon it's pretty good. And then one day the teacher comes to the student and says, okay, now I want you to take everything that you've learned, all of this in your mind, and forget it and just swing the sword. And that's kind of the space where you want to be. And I'm going to give you one more example of why insight and implicit learning why insight can shift your entire vision internally and externally, and have you see this new pattern, which puts you into this different state. And this is more of a Zen parable, but people love these Zen riddles. You love to listen to them. And if you've ever wondered why, it's because it actually shifts your entire perspective. So this is the story of two Zen monks. One is older, senior, the other one is younger. And they are about to cross a river. At the river bank, there's this beautiful young lady. And it's a pretty, tumultuous river. And she asks that's my significant other, she asks the older monk to help get helped across the river. And the older monk grabs the lady, puts her on her back, and they go across the river, and the younger monk is following, and he's shocked and aghast and repulsed even, right? And so the older monk takes the lady across the river, she gets off his back, and then they continue. Now, keep in mind, these two monks have vowed to never touch a woman. So this is like a big no-no in the younger monk's mind. So they're walking for an hour. Older monk doesn't say anything. They walk for 2 hours. Still, they don't say anything to one another. Then at the third hour, the younger monk finally says, like, what the hell? Probably not what the hell, but like, what the purgatory? Like, we're not supposed to touch a woman. We took a vow. And then the older monk turns to the younger monk and says, oh, I put her back down at the river and you're still carrying her. And why you like these type of parables is because it shifts your entire perception to an entirety or collection of new patterns. Because the pattern you shift to is like, oh, what am I too rigid about? What am I too stuck on? What am I carrying with me that I shouldn't be carrying when it's something that happened a long time ago? And that's why insight can lead to enhanced implicit learning, and it kind of feed upon one another. So that's the idea of effortlessness. And if you have any questions, please contact me. Peace.